long-term planning. So, long-term planning, the financial planning. And we talked about growth and planning and preparing pro forma financial statements. So that's about financial planning. So you learned how to prepare pro forma financial statements, so calculating cash flow. So cash flow for, so based on pro forma financial statement, you calculate cash flow from assets that's expected to be generated next year, year one. But how does this relate to the value of the firm? So in other words, this cash flow from assets. So corporations' assets generate cash flow. It's expected to generate this amount of cash flow. Let's say this is 100 million. So 100, everything million. So cash flow one is supposed to be 100 million generated next year. And how does it relate to the value of the firm's assets, the value? So this is value now. So if we just say value, it's value now. But this cash flow from assets expected to be generated next year, 1 year from today. How does it relate? And another issue is, as you learned in chapter 1, corporations have unlimited life. So cash flow one that's generated next year, that's not the only cash flow that contribute to the value. So if you buy a corporation share, corporations have unlimited life, so cash flow 2 years from today. So every year generate cash flows. And 3 years from today, all the cash flows, the values should be added to find how valuable the company is. So should add all. So it does not end actually in year 3. It continues. So 4 years, 5 years, everything will contribute how valuable the firm's asset is. So that's where this new chapter, so in chapter 5, we move on to the time value of money. Because this 100 million, this 100 million in year 1. So we are trying to convert 100 million next year. So to make it simple, it's just also everything is 100 million. But my point is 100 million is expected to be generated 1 year from today. That value, current value of those future cash flows, we cannot just add future money to get the present value. So the value now is the money now. So the point of chapter 5, time value of money concept is 100 million next year is not equivalent to 100 million now. So how to convert that future money into the current money, present value. So in the next chapter, starting from chapter 5, we are gonna learn. So cash flow, future value, 1 year from today. So what should we do is we need to discount those. So we don't just add those. What do we do? So money next year, we need to discount it because there is an interest rate. So there should be a discount rate R and to the power of 1 because it's 1 year. And for the second year, another 100 million that's expected to be generated 2 years from today. Should we do the same? But it's not fair for 100 million next year versus 100 million 2 years from today. So we need to use the second power for this. We need to use the third power. Now you may be confused why what she's doing. So I understand 100 million 3 years from today is different from 100 million now, but why she's doing it? Don't worry, we will talk about it soon. So the point is that this is the key. Present value is different from, so money now is that present value is different from money in the future. So that's future value. So it's not equal. So how to convert future value into present value? We need to discount. How? We need to use 1 plus the discount rate, interest rate to the power of how many periods? So this is the key. So in this example, we are converting future money to present money. So present, we convert the future value to present value, but we can do other calculations. So in other words, if I give you present value, interest rate, and period, you should be able to calculate future value. So this time value of money calculation in chapter 5 is all about exploring the relationship of those 4 variables: present value, future value, interest rate, number of periods. And in chapter 5, we start with basic calculations, but believe it or not, you're gonna see this kind of time value of money relationship will be very useful to find many complicated concepts. So for example, like bonds. So we are gonna use this concept for bond valuation, stock valuation, and project valuation. Mortgage, car loans. So all those, this valuation concept in finance relies on this time value of money concept because money in the future. So when you invest in a company's value is derived from money, the company's assets is expected to generate in the future. What's the present value? So to understand why stock market, today we see stock market is again fluctuating a lot today, high volatility. So to understand this kind of relationships, you start with the time value of money concept. So, okay, let me stop share. So, now I think you guys are ready to start chapter 5. So let me go to chapter 5, right? So before we move on, any questions so far? If there is any questions, you can write down your questions on the chat box. So yeah, no questions, all right. Then I can move on. So in chapter 5, as I mentioned, we start the time value of money concept. So as I mentioned, valuation is a key element in many decisions in finance. So for example, whereas the CFO of a company, the CFO wants to decide what an investment project is it worth taking. So if that investment project, is it generating value for the company or not? To do the evaluation, the project value, the present value of all the future benefits generated by the project should be calculated. So in that kind of project evaluation, this time value of money concept will be very useful. So down the road during the semester, you would do that kind of practice. So in chapter 5, my recommendation is after you develop this kind of big picture, now let's divide this complicated task into small pieces and conquer. So let me start with a very simple question. So how much are you willing to pay for $100 that you expect to receive in 1 year? So forget about all the complicated questions, and now let's focus on this simple question. So this is about $100 that will be paid in 1 year. So how much you are willing to pay now for that $100 that will be paid next year, 1 year from today. So September 21st, 2021, that $100 payment that day in 1 year. How much are you willing to pay now for that? Definitely less than $100, right? So money in front of you now, that's a lot more valuable than money you are expected to be paid 1 year from today. So it's less valuable than $100. So now you are willing to pay less than $100. But how much less? So in this example, future value is 100 and T is 1 year. Time period is just 1 year. So I'm asking you how much you're willing to pay now, present value for this. And one thing is missing. So how much interest rate should be charged? So if once I give you the interest rate, so the right discount rate, the question you can answer. So again, using this simple question, I'm trying to explain the relationship among those 4 variables. So again, present value and future value are different. So money now and money in the future have different values. And how they are related, we should know the discount rate and the number of periods. So let me go step by step using another simple numerical example. So here I'm asking you a question. So suppose you invest $700 in an asset. It can be a bond or any other asset. So suppose you invest $700 in an asset. That means you're paying $700 now. So this $700 is now the current money, present value. And how much will you have in 2 years after this investment? So I'm asking you, what will be the future value? And the number of period is 2 years. And to find the answer, we should know what's the interest rate. So what if the annual interest rate is 6%? How much you're gonna have in the future in 2 years? So let's just take a look how much you will have after 1 year. So you invested $700 now, and annual interest rate is 6%. So how much is the interest you earned after 1 year? So 6% of 700 is $42. So after 1 year, you're gonna have $700 is 42 cents. $742. Why? Because your original 700 should be multiplied by 1 plus interest rate 6%. Why 1? Because it's principal. After 1 year, you still have $700 and plus 6% of $700, $42, that's the interest rate. So that's why future value is present value multiplied by 1 plus interest rate. So that's $742. So that's after 1 year. What about after 2 years? So how much are you gonna have in 2 years? Because after 1 year, this becomes your money after 1 year. 700 multiplied by 1, your principal, plus 6% interest. So that's where you start after 1 year. And this earned 1, that's principal, plus 6% interest. So in other words, 700 multiplied by 1.6 to the power of 2. So $746.52, $786.52 is how much you will have in 2 years. So let's take a moment to look at this simple question. All right, $700, that's what you invested at time 0, and 6% is the interest rate per year, so $42. So you earn $42 of interest every year. So 42 plus 42 is 84. So why? The future value after 2 years is more than, so say $42 times 2 is $84. So the answer, future value in 2 years is not $784. It's $786.52. In other words, there is $2.52 additional. Where does this come from? So that's the concept of compounding. Because after 1 year, you earn $42 interest, and that interest you earned during the first year, $42 earn interest as well during the second year. So this is the important concept, compounding, interest on interest. So in finance, we use compounded interest. So every year when interest is earned on your investment, that interest also earns interest down the road. So this is not simple interest. So if there is only simple interest in this setup, the answer would be 784. So $2.52 less. So this $2.52 is interest on interest. So simple interest versus compounding. So compounding is a very powerful concept. And if nothing is written, always assume compounding in finance. If the interest payment is based on simple interest, it should be written clearly. If nothing is written, you should assume compounding. And this is a key relation. So future value is present value. That's where you start, multiply by 1 plus interest rate to the power of number of periods. So how to rearrange it? So in this question, you are asked to calculate future value. But if I ask you to calculate present value, you rearrange this equation. So that means present value equals future value divided by 1 plus r to the power of t. So that present value equation is actually what I showed you here in this. Go back to my board. Yeah, so present value is future value divided by 1 plus r to the power of t. So future value is present value multiplied by 1 plus r to the power of t. So just playing with this simple relationship is the most fundamental concept you should understand in the time value of money. And this is based on compounding. So why we convert future cash flows to get the present value this way? Because we are using the concept of compounding, right? Any questions so far? So I don't see any questions in the chat box. So let me, well, I allow the chat, but I don't see any. No, all good. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so then let me move on to the next slide. All right. So the next slide shows this general relationship. So hopefully you are now become familiar with this formula. So let's see in the chat. So let me open the chat box. Right. Okay, good. So let me go back to the slide. All right. And then I just showed you a very simple calculation, but definitely down the road, you're going to see a lot of complicated calculations. Oh, I can think about another good example. So far, we just calculated the future value using present value or calculated present value using future value. So you can do this simple kind of calculation. But what if I ask you, what's the implied interest rate from this present value of future value and number of periods? And then the calculation becomes a little bit more complicated, right? And what about there are more than one cash flow? There are many cash flows. And if I ask you to do the implied interest rate or number of period calculation, that calculation will take more time. So my point here is down the road, when we do stock valuation, project valuation, bond valuation, there are many complicated time value of money calculation problems out there. So you must be equipped with that computational tools. So that's another important concept you should learn in this chapter and the next chapter. So you should use a financial calculator or an Excel spreadsheet to do the calculation. So this is a brief explanation of how to use a financial calculator. So I'm using Texas Instrument BA2 Plus financial calculator. So these are the keys: future value key, present value key. The interest rate key in the BA2 Plus financial calculator is IY. And these are the important things, the rules, how to use the calculator. Because as I mentioned before, financial calculator, that's not human. So we should, when we use financial calculator, we need to use the method the calculator is programmed to be functioning. So these are the terms used in the financial calculator, and calculator memory should be cleared. So if there is anyone who plans to take the CFA exam in the future, definitely CFA exam's official calculation tool is BA2 Plus financial calculator. So you should be familiar with this financial BA2 Plus Texas Instrument financial calculator. But I know many of you here in this class, you're not like those students who are not gonna take a CFA exam. Don't worry, it's too much about this BA2 Plus calculator. And especially, and before the pandemic, when we didn't have a computer to take exam or quizzes, I asked the students to buy a BA2 Plus financial calculator and become familiar with it, because I could not allow students to use a computer during quizzes or exams. But after the pandemic, the situation had changed completely. So now everybody is using everybody can use Excel during quizzes and exams. So now I'm emphasizing more to use Excel. So now I don't have a reason for asking students to buy a financial calculator unless that student plans to take a CFA exam in the future. So I will, down the road, I will, during the class, I will focus more on Excel, how to use Excel, because you already have Excel, you don't have to pay for it. You can use Excel to do the calculation. So I will emphasize Excel to do this time value of money calculation. So in Excel, these 4 functions, you are gonna use these 4 functions a lot to do the calculations. So there is a future value function in Excel, present value function in Excel, rate function in Excel, number of periods function in Excel. So to calculate future value of a time value of money calculation, you need to use the future value function, and you should follow the Excel's rule. Otherwise, the computer, that's not human, unfortunately. So Excel is not thinking like us. So Excel is just programmed to do the calculations. So you should learn how to make Excel work. So rate should be entered, and then number of periods should be entered, and payment should be entered, and present value should be entered. But now you may ask, oh, what is payment? Don't worry, this payment part, you didn't learn about it yet. So this payment part, you will learn in the next chapter, chapter 6, when many same payments will repeat for every period, like mortgage payment, we are gonna use this key. But in this chapter, in this introductory time value money calculation chapter, you just have 4 variables: future value, present value, number of period, and interest rate. So just simply put it equal to 0. But we don't have payment in this simple question, and enter everything else. So when you click the Excel file, so when you double click the Excel file, this spreadsheet should show up. So let me move on to the spreadsheet. So let me share this spreadsheet. Okay. Share screen and the spreadsheet. All right. So in that Excel spreadsheet embedded in the PowerPoint slide, you see future value, present value, and rate, and number of period calculations. So in the future value calculation, so you see a simple example. So you have $10,000 to invest. You will need the money in 5 years, and you expect to earn 8% per year. How much you will have in 5 years? So this is a future value question. So if you take a closer look at this, you see, we are using future value function. And Excel kindly shows you what you should enter. So rate should come first. So rate is G5 cell, 8%. And then what is the next? Number of period. Number of period is 5 years. And what is payment? I told you in this kind of simple question, there is no repeat payment every period. We just simply set it equal to 0. And then what's the present value? We started with $10,000. But if you take a closer look at this Excel spreadsheet, you see I put negative in front of future value. And you may wonder why. Why did I put negative in front of future value? Because this is the calculator and Excel convention. So present value, so positive means that's cash inflow. Negative means cash outflow. So when you make an investment, you deposit $10,000, and as a return, after 5 years, you receive this future value. So that's the calculator convention. So in this question is written like from the counterparty of the financial institution that's receiving investment. So from the financial institution's point of view, they receive your $10,000 now, and the money grow for 5 years, you earning 8% per year, and then that money grows to become $14,696.28. And future value calculated will be negative, meaning that the financial institution will give you the money, cash outflow, their cash outflow. That money will the financial institution that received your $10,000 will give it to you. So that's why the future value calculation, calculated future value is negative. And to make it nicer, I put negative sign because of that reason. So future value from financial institution that received your $10,000, that will be written like a negative number because of that reason. So I put negative sign, so that's the future value. Oops. Yeah. All right. So any questions so far? So if you don't have any questions, let me take a short break. So in the Excel file I just showed you, there are 3 more spreadsheets for present value, rate, and number of period. So quickly take a look at those other 3 spreadsheets. So while I'll give you 2-3 minutes for that. So while you are doing this, I will take attendance using the name in the participant list. So I will take a screenshot as before, and then I will record it. And during that process, if you have any questions, write your questions on the chat box. So I will take attendance using the screenshot. So I'm doing print screen, and then copy, paste it. Yeah, I took the first page, participant list, right? And then I move on to page number 2, and I take another screenshot, and then paste it in my file, attendance book. And now I took all, yeah, to make sure. And okay, I take a look at the chat box. No student. And then I don't see any questions. So yeah, I took the attendance and there seems to be no questions. So then we can move go back to the slide. All right. All right. So you do the same for present value. So there is a present value question. You need $150,000 in 18 years for a college education, and you earn 6% per year interest rate. How much to be invested to get $150,000 in 18 years? So long-term planning for education. Yeah, that's a good thing. So how much you need to invest now, today, to make it grow to $150,000. So $150,000 is future value, and number of periods, 18 years, and interest rate, 6%. So how much is the present value? So the present value is, so you click this and the formula the present value formula is rate, number of period, payment 0, and future value. Again, we put negative sign here because here, future value 150,000, that's positive. That means you want to receive $150,000 now. So to do that, to do the calculation under these terms, investment terms, you get present value. You just do the calculation. Yeah, let me do the trick. So if you just do this calculation and you get negative number. So Excel gives you negative number. And you see in Excel, just use format, click format, this number, you just, the format of the cell is negative number put in a parenthesis. So that's the format. But if you want to change it into this, you can change it. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go back to this. And so what's the meaning? So if you don't put any negative sign, Excel gives you present value negative number. That means you wanna receive 150,000 in the future. So you are receiving it. So to do that, you need to make a negative number, negative $52,551.57. You need to invest this amount now. So that's your cash outflow. So that's why it's written in negative number. So that's Excel's way of thinking this time value of money problem. So to make it look nicer, I just put negative sign here to look, to show you present value, but you need to be careful about the sign convention when you work with the financial calculator or Excel spreadsheet. So yeah, let me move on to this rate. So in this, especially, it is especially important when you do the rate calculation. So in the third example, you have $30,000 to invest and you need $45,000 for a down payment and closing cost on a house. If you want to buy the house in 2 years, what rate of interest do you need to earn? So this is about interest rate. So in the time value of money calculation. So $30,000. That's what you have now. So that's the present value. And you what's your goal? Okay. So what's your goal? Oh, I think I messed up something. So, okay. Right? So here, present value, you have now $30,000 and you wanna make this grow to $45,000 in 2 years. So is it a reasonable goal? So to find out what kind of interest rate you should earn to make that happen. So in this kind of calculations, doing the calculation using formula, using your regular calculator, you will need to use logarithmic function and more advanced mathematical skills. So to make it easier for you to do the calculation, Excel already has the rate function. So you just simply use Excel rate function. So let me make it bigger. So rate function is using number of period here 2 and payment again 0 and present value 30,000 and take a closer look at this. So G3, so that's present value 30,000 and remember here, you should make one thing 30,000 and the other thing 45,000 negative. So one of these two must be negative. Otherwise, this will not work. So So here, let me just put erase negative sign. So that means both you entered present value and 30,000 and 45,000. You 30,000 present value and 45,000 future value, both positive number. And then guess what's going to happen? So if I use this, what's going to happen? Can anyone guess what's going to happen? What Excel will do? Anyone? You can use a chat box. Yeah, Excel, yeah, negative interest rate. Let's see what happened. Yeah, error message. So Excel gives an error message. Why? Because Excel thinks, oh, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand what's going on. Yeah, the reason is, how come you keep receiving money? So $30,000 you receive now, and in the future $45,000 you receive. No, that cannot happen. You need to invest $30,000 to receive $45,000, or you need to pay $30,000 to receive $45,000 in the future. So one of them should be negative. Excel does not understand what's going on. It's not human. Yeah, so you must make one of those negative. So either present value negative or future value negative, because in all transactions, there are two parties, you know. So in this, if you will write this in your perspective, so you invest $30,000, that means that cash outflow. So from your point of view, you invest $30,000 and later receive $45,000. So that either way, this one, so this is calculated like that from your point of view. But what about the financial institution like banks or other funds, your counterparty's point of view? They will receive your $30,000 and they need to pay you $45,000. Either way, so the interest rate, whether you do the calculation from your perspective or from your counterparty, which is a financial institution's point of view, the rate should be the same. So either way, it's fine. As long as your calculator or Excel understands what's going on, you're fine. But if you make both a positive number, your calculation does not go anywhere because Excel doesn't know what to do. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, thanks a lot, Silvana and Alicia, for your participation. All right, any other questions? All right, so you do the same calculation for number of periods as well. So you see in the number of period calculation, there is also negative sign. So in short, sign convention matters. So if you don't follow sign conventions, you may get an incorrect answer or error message. So using technology like computers, your phone, calculators, that's convenient, but it's convenient only when you use those technologies correctly, because technologies, computers are not human, so they cannot think like us. So computers are programmed to follow certain rules. So if you don't learn the computer's rule, Excel's rule of doing the calculation, you cannot get the right answer. You cannot make Excel work correctly for you. So you should know and you should practice. So that's why you must practice a lot before you're taking quizzes or exams. So that's why I give you connect homework problem sets, and I allow you unlimited attempts, and I I take only the highest number as your grade, as written on the syllabus, so that you don't have to worry about making errors from the initial attempts. So just practice and learn from the solutions and use the next trial. You will get different numbers, but still, if you understood from the first trial, you can do better. So that's the setup. So any questions so far? So we have only 9 minutes. So during the 9 minutes, let me give you a quick overview of what we will be doing on Wednesday and the following classes. And before I move on to that kind of overview type of presentation, I want to make sure that you have, so far you had chapter 1 and 2 and 3 homeworks done, and you took the third quiz today. So many assignments and quizzes are on Connect, and you can see all the solutions. Also, chapter 4. So chapter 4 homework problem sets are due by this Wednesday. So as I mentioned before, don't worry about losing points in your initial attempts. Don't worry. You learn during the process, and what's the matter if as your grade is the highest score you earn. So do the homework. But what you should remember that. You should remember that. Thank you, Hong Jan. Yeah, thank you for coming, Hong Jan. Yeah, bye. So the most important thing is don't miss the deadline. So if you miss the deadline, so during the while the assignment before the due date, there is no penalty for making errors and doing it again and to improve. But after the deadline, there is 1% per hour late penalty. So don't delay and don't procrastinate, okay? All right, so let me use the remaining 7 minutes to show you the overall picture. So here, let's go back to this slide. Let me share screen. Share screen. So here, so we use, so we have, I give you a practice problem. So, but today we don't have much time. So I strongly encourage you to do the in-class practice, this practice problem at home, and make sure you can find the correct answers. Next class on Wednesday, I'm gonna ask you what's the answer. And next, so the remaining slide shows you why compounding is important. So graphical illustration of compounding's power. So the blue part shows the difference between simple interest payment and how fast money grows when we use compounding. And the next chart shows the compounding's impact gets a lot larger when we have a higher interest rates and longer time period, because compounding is about interest on interest. So when we have more time to make interest, earn interest, and higher interest rate, the impact of compounding, the powerful compounding benefits will amplify. So this slide shows that. And then watch in slide 8, we start adding more details. So far in previous slide number 1 to 7, we just assumed that interest payment interval is annual. So 5 years period, then 5 times, compounding 5 times every year. But in the real world, is it not necessarily the case? No. In some contracts, compounding may be more frequent, like monthly compounding. That's usual. So let's do the same calculation, except for one thing, compounding interval is monthly. So suppose you deposit $700 in a savings account, and interest rate is 6% per year. And how long will it take to have $1,000 in the account? So $1,000 is future value. So 1,000 is future value, and present value is 700. And what's the interest rate? Not 6. You should not write 6% here. Why not? Because 6% is the annual interest rate, but you should use monthly interest rate here because the compounding interval is monthly. So what should be R, interest rate? It's not 6%. It's 6 divided by 1. So let's see. So what should be R there? 6% divided by 12, so 0.5%. So that's why 0.5%. But when you, so this is 0.5% is percent, but in the formula, it's 0.005. So in decimal, so 0.005. So in decimal, it's 0.005. So 1 plus 0.005. So 1.005 to the power of t. So you need to solve for t to get 71.51 months. Either you can use your financial calculator and you double click this to use it in an Excel, to do the calculation in Excel. Okay. So that's one other complication. So we need to carefully check compounding interval, annual, monthly. So, all right. So what else? So interest rate. Yeah, using the same example in the previous slide, I asked you to do the number of period calculation here. I asked you to calculate interest rate. So yeah. So as long as you are consistent, you're fine. So here, present value calculation, all about using different, doing the different calculations using more frequent compounding interval. And also, after you become familiar with how to do the calculations, let's take a moment to think about what's behind, how to interpret this calculation. So, for example, what if you should pay $1,000 to someone in the future? Yeah, that's your liability, $1,000, but it's not, you don't pay now, you will pay in the future, $1,000. And what's a good example? Pension fund. You're the CFO of a pension fund. You need to pay someone in the future, not now. And that's the liability. So what's the $10,000 payment in the future? What's the present value of that liability? So in that kind of calculation, when rates go up, is it a good news for the pension fund CFO? Yeah. When interest rate go up, present value go down. For the future fixed payment, present value goes down. So this kind of conceptual understanding you should practice as well. So these are remaining slides are about more details about the time value of money calculations. But I need to warn you, this time value of money calculations, we start with very simple questions. And again, like sign conventions, there are many ways, places things can get wrong. So you need to practice. Also, down the road, these time value of money calculations will become very complicated. But so far, it's not too bad, right? So make sure that, thank you, Philip. I see 12, that's the correct answer. Thank you. Yeah, so so far, time value of money concept you learned and calculation is not too bad, but it will become very complicated in the future. So it's very important for you not to get lost. So that's why I emphasize doing homework on time, and I have Wednesday office hours. So don't get lost. So if though these complicated topics accumulate, this class will be unmanageable. So don't make that happen to you. So otherwise, I will see you. If you have any questions, stay. Otherwise, so next quiz. So Kagla asks, when is the next quiz? I wish I could give you a quiz every week because that way you will be less lost. But the problem is 15 minutes quiz time also reduces the time for lecture, and there are many complicated concepts. So the right balance I found so far is, what about every third class we have a quiz? So that's my plan. But if down the road, when I check the assignment and many students need more frequent quiz, then I may adjust. Or down the road, if there are many topics we are really short in time, then I may give you quiz less frequently. So every third class I have giving a quiz. So that's my current plan. So until what chapter is going to be the midterm exam? That's a good question. So I try to follow the syllabus, but we may need to reduce it a little bit. So let me take a look. And yeah, so how to access the BMC? Actually, many students already did this. So if you can stay, I can stay in this class. I can show how to use access BMC, or you can come to my, let's do that. Or those who cannot stay, come to my Wednesday office hour. So if you stay, I will show you. So if you don't have any questions, bye-bye. And if you have a question, just stay. But if you have a question that should be asked